Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are speaking with an athlete who started competing in 2020, where she swept the South Dakota Championships before moving on to compete and win at the Nashville Fit Show in her open class in 2021. This competitor knew she wanted to go pro from when she first started, but had no idea how much it would take, and says she was humbled through her journey. In 2022, she placed second at the same show, then at that show where she and I met, which was North Americans in 2022. We both placed in the sea of 16.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And then she went on to win an overall at the Minnesota State Championships before taking an offseason and returning this year to win the first and open and overall at her first regional show of the year, and then got second at Junior USA's. And then, of course, she became our overall champion and IFBB Pro at the Junior Nationals, which, like we said, secures her pro card. And then literally went on to make her pro debut at the IFBB World Classic Pro, earning a 10th place finish, which is incredible. And competing has brought out the best in this woman and completely transformed her from a miserable wife and a miserable marriage to a dream life with her own lifestyle fitness coaching business focused on helping other women reclaim their confidence. When she isn't coaching, she's spending time with her cat, Richard. Love the name. Laughing and drinking champagne with Kiki on the Champagne Gains podcast that they host together. Welcome to the show, BECKYN MICKELSON. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing so well. So excited to be here. It's just like we've known each other for a couple years now. And I just knew like one day I'm going to get to be on her podcast. And
here we are. It's so awesome to hear that. Like, we've definitely had some experiences together, like the retreat and the North Americans and seeing each other at the Arnold. So our paths have crossed and we've followed each other's journeys. And I've been equally as excited to one day have you on. So, I have to start by asking if there's anything you do, think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
well, actually, I mean, up until this year, yes, I did have a ritual. And it was just a shot of Fireball. And then
Really?
we had Kiki and I found these, like, we always use gummy candy to like pump up, but we found these sloth, like gummy, like trolley sloths, which you can't find anywhere anymore. We found them this year. They're in like an all-star mix. So she bought those for me. So it's like I put them in salt, right? In this little container of salt, and we call it sloths in sand.
That's cute.
So a couple sloths in sand before getting on stage. This year I only took a shot of Fireball once. And that just like it, I'm not gonna lie, like I've suggested it for other people before that have like crazy nerves. But this year I just feel like I had matured so much as a competitor, like being on stage was like easy, and it wasn't like I don't need this liquid courage to go out there and own it. So this year I did recess before stage, but otherwise I don't like to really like think about getting on stage before getting on stage. Like I practice my posing. If I practice posing too much beforehand, I'm gonna mess it up. But like my pre-stage ritual is literally not thinking about it. And I'm just like the most that we call that my superpower, that I'm just like so calm and collected on show day. Like obviously I worked with Kiki for multiple years, but then like Coach Ben was part of the dynamic this year. And he's like, are you anxious? Are you anxious? Like thinking that we're like, no, like I'm fine.
Wow.
It's good. So, and then just like, I don't like to be at the venue for very long before going on stage. So I just like walk in, like they're already lining Bikini up usually when I walk in because I don't want to sit back there. Like
Yeah,
at North Americans, that was an awful experience.
that was horrible.
Sitting backstage for so long, like hard pass on that.
Yeah, and you're not only backstage for so long, you're crammed with everybody like literal sardines. And then you go to that little waiting area. And then right when you think you're about to go on, remember we walked and we were behind like four other classes?
Yeah.
I couldn't
So
believe it.
they didn't let you have any like, well, you could have bands back there, but not, and it was freezing. So it's like
It
your
was
pump
so
up
cold.
routine, if you do it before you get in line, it's like, well, you have to do it again by the time you get up there. It's just, that's just such a huge show because of all the masters competitors and everything. So I'm very happy the two shows I did this year. No offense to the masters competitors, but I'm glad it was just like open classes.
Yeah, because it reduces most of the times those masters competitors will also do open classes. So it reduces the number of competitors. And
Yeah.
you've obviously done quite a few national shows now. So do you have one that's been like your favorite experience? I mean, obviously maybe winning your pro card, but
Yeah, that was like definitely a hands down favorite experience, but junior like didn't like North Americans at all. Junior USA's was it was really small. Like there was only 5 people in my
I
class.
saw that.
So it was really nice that how small and well run that show was. But obviously, yes, my favorite national show was definitely Junior Nats. Um, like we kind of knew after prejudging that it was going to happen. So it was really chill that afternoon, and just exciting. The only thing I was like going into it, I was like, I had with this thought literally crossed my mind. Like, I don't even want to get my pro card at the show because then I'm gonna have to do my pro debut and just get absolutely humbled, is what I thought. But then,
That's
like,
true.
7 out of the 8 new pros did their pro debut that night. Um, and so that was good too, just having other like babies on the
Yeah.
stage with me. And then getting top 10 was, I was just shocked. So
Why was it shocking for you?
because I just had this thought in my mind, like, okay, you turn pro and then you're kind of like at the bottom of the totem pole again, right? Because I
Mhm.
mean, these girls are massive. They've been competing for however many years. They're all, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are seasoned. So it was just me freaking myself out and discrediting myself basically. So that's my piece of advice after that whole thing. Like, you have to believe in yourself because
Mm.
you're not going, like, no matter what you think, what preconceived notions you have, what other people say to you, like, you can go on to get 10th place in a pro show
I
just
love
immediately after winning your pro card. And JM was backstage and, convincing some of the other new ones to do it. Like, I heard him say, like, we pick the people that turn pro because we know they can fit in on a pro stage. Like, hello,
Yes.
you guys
Yes.
don't need to be nervous about doing this. You are pros now.
I've heard that before. I've heard that he said that to people before. Like, okay, you're in the pro league, compete as a pro. You don't
Yes.
have to wait. You can see how you stack up. Sure, you might not place, as
Right.
well as you expect or have in the NPC, but it's just insight. And did you get
Yeah.
feedback that you were expecting, or what are you doing with that
Um,
feedback?
we talked to Sandy between uh the end of the between getting my pro card and then doing the show. I mean, I just need a little bit more size in my glutes as always. Like, that's just
Wow.
one thing that is going to continue to be improved throughout this whole career. And then a little more fullness in my arms, like biceps and triceps. So
Interesting. I actually wouldn't have expected that because so many of us who have been trying to grow our shoulders, me, do not touch our biceps and triceps, maybe
that's what
a
I've,
little. But
yeah.
so I don't know if that's what you were doing. You're like, okay, just shoulders.
Yeah, so after my first show of the year, at St. Louis, Becky Clausen was the head judge there. She said the thing then. So then I started training biceps and triceps going into Judo USA's. And then, I mean, it was just part of my training then. So my training hasn't changed since, I mean, it's been a while. Like, I think junior, after the St. Louis show, we changed it. And I've just been doing the same thing ever since. And it like worked. Like, it was crazy to see how much, like, if you're putting in the work, you can change so much, like from show to show. So taking, like, seriously, take the judges' feedback to heart and implement it, or do what you need to do, and you can show up better. And I remember, well, at the beginning of my prep this year, I remember saying to Kiki, like, dude, I don't think I'm there yet. Like, I feel like my glutes just need more. And then after St. Louis, Becky was like, on her feedback thing, then said that it said nationals underlined next to my name. I was like, what?
Wow.
Because after North America is my first national show,
Right.
2022, and third call outs, no placing. Like, yeah, it that was a humbling experience for sure. So knowing that, I took that year and a half off and put in the work to like be competitive on the national stage. So that is another big piece of advice for me. Like, don't be afraid to take the off season. Because I learned so much about myself during that time, and obviously made improvements that I needed to make.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I'm personally inspired by because I was right there with you. Like I know how that feels. You're like, okay, well, that was like that's you look great on your own, and then you go up next to everybody
Yes.
else. You're like, oh, I
Mhm.
see what's going on. So when you took that time off, what did you focus on, and what do you think made the biggest difference?
So I think what made the biggest difference was me healing my relationship with food. Like, it wasn't really bad. It was just kind of an all or nothing. It was an all or nothing person. Like, if I'm gonna go out to eat, I'm getting appetizers, I'm getting a huge entree, I'm getting dessert. And just like, I don't think I would call it a binging episode, but just eating to the point of, maybe you don't feel very good right now, but you're still gonna keep eating because you like feel like you have to finish what's on your plate, all that. So we did, um, it was Corey Gregory's like anabolic fasting protocol. So essentially what it was is fast until noon, eat protein, carbs, and fat. We did carbs for me. At noon, at 6, and then you have like a carb spike at night before bed. And then on the weekends, like Friday through Saturday, eat whatever you want. Like, and then get back on it on Sunday. We actually added, like, I was eating protein and fats for breakfast in it with that protocol as well. But being able to eat whatever I wanted on the weekends was, it's like there's a balance between whether it's a good idea or not for certain people.
Right.
Um, but being able to eat whatever I wanted really helped me, like, basically get it all out of my system. And then it only took a couple months. As time went on, I was like not eating enough on the weekends because I still needed to grow. So it was like, all right, I'm done eating like this. And then it became not as food became not as big of a deal. Um, and especially like throughout the whole year and a half. I was only doing that for a while, and then we switched back to like, okay, we need you at this amount of calories. So I was doing that for a while, and then just like taking the whole year and a half, like I was tracking my macros for the most part, following meal plan, whatever. Um, but it just became like when I could go out to eat and not feel like I needed to finish my plate, not be like obsessing over it throughout that whole time. So that was a huge change for me. And then going back into prep, it was like I was ready to prep again. Like, all right, I'm sick of this. Like, I want this structure. So that was huge. as far as like the competing and eating side of things. Training massive. Like I feel like so many people don't actually train hard enough um to their full potential, basically. And they're leaving a lot on the table by not actually like tracking their weights, trying different things.
Yeah.
I tried a bunch of different things. Like I follow the Mind Pump guys.
Mhm.
Um, and I tried one of their like heavy lifting programs, like heavy weight, low reps. I feel like that was really awesome to do. Versus just like bodybuilding style training. So that was fun for me and just really pushing myself hard in the gym. But um, mentally throughout that time. So my prep of 2022, I was going through a divorce. And so that was, I would not suggest prepping during a divorce to anyone. But it did give me something to like focus on. So that was helpful for me. But so it was that off season was a really great time for me to like learn about who I am, build my business, work on myself, and just like become the most confident version of myself during that time as well.
Have you ever been told that you can't heal your relationship with food unless you stop competing? Or do you feel like a lost cause because every time you've tried to heal your relationship with food, you're always met with the same challenges, judgment, shame, and guilt? But you're ready to get to that root of your relationship with food and really understand your habits and behaviors and make lasting changes that are going to drive you forward in your competition goals as well as your life. And of course, if you don't want to stop competing in this sport that you love, but you also don't want to continue down the rabbit hole that is setting you back in your life, emotions, and potential for success on stage, I want you to know that you can get through this. And no, you do not have to stop competing in order to do so. You truly deserve to have successful preps, productive improvement seasons, and peace of mind year round. Because when your head is full of thoughts of food, eating, or guilt, you cannot invest that energy into the goals you truly care about, which is a big reason why I launched the 5-week food relationship program and why it has been my most highly demanded program to help competitors like yourself make peace with food so they can pursue the sport they love for the long run without having to worry about sacrificing their mental health. If you want to learn more about this program and hear from others who have done it, then visit www.celestial.fit/foodfreedom. Scroll through that page, get some information, and if you're inspired and you are ready to take action on this, go ahead and apply to work with me, and I will be getting back to you within 24 to 48 hours to go over your application and discuss your concerns specifically to determine if and how I can support you. Again, that is at www.celestial.fit/foodfreedom. Wow. So no, it was great because you touched on a lot of the areas I wanted to touch on with you. So I'm going to go back through some of them one at a time. So we'll go back to the food relationship. So with the protocol you tried with the fasting, what's so interesting about that to me, like from a mental health perspective, I'm always like, I wouldn't recommend like fasting because a lot of people use it as a binge excuse, but the way that you approach it sounded like less of that, although the weekends having full permission. This is how when I'm presenting something like normalization to a client, I'm helping them to see that you're exposing yourself to something that previously you lost control over, but in a now controlled environment. So you being someone who previously or maybe still identifies as all or nothing, given a protocol that says this is allowed. On the weekends, you can do what you want to do. Now it's like you have permission to do it. So there's a lot less of that incongruency, that experience that creates the guilt and the shame. So you create a better relationship with your choices and the foods that you're eating because it's in an environment that's actually chosen and it's mindful. So it sounds like it worked well for you, and you guys still made some modifications to support you. Yeah. And you made a interesting point that even on some of the weekends, you stopped eating as much, like you weren't eating enough. And I think that's like a really good point to kind of focus on is like, we think that if we give ourselves freedom, we will lose control. But that is based in past experiences where freedom wasn't actually granted. It was something that you were like seeking and in a more rebellious manner. Whereas
Yeah.
when you give yourself freedom, generally what we find is you're more likely to make decisions that align with your goals and with your values over time because you'll see the
Mhm.
impact. So would you say that that's what your experience was?
Yeah, yeah, that you nailed it. I mean, having the permission essentially, and it also just I'm a very protocol, like I like protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like having that and like the permission. So there's no like rebellion. And then it's like, okay, can you really not wait 5 days to eat something? Like you can do that. And then I think that just helps with um like you give yourself something to look forward to. So it's like, okay, and then you can prove to yourself, I can follow my plan for 4 days. And it's not like I hated what I was eating either. I was still eating good food. It's just like weekends, I'm gonna do this. And I would like plan for it throughout the week. But then, like I said, it just became like less of a thing. So yes, it was like the best thing I personally could have done for that, for me to heal my relationship with food and any like bad habits that I have.
And it's nice to hear different things that people do because what that also is kind of an example of is impulse control. And what we know is people who struggle more with like the binge eating, the overeating, there's lower impulse control as opposed to someone who's maybe more on the anorexia side of things, more restrictive. There's a lot of impulse control. And it's very fascinating because you look at competitors and you think, wow, they've got so much discipline, they have so much control. But it's rooted in generally like this end goal. You know, there's like something that's what's keeping it under control and you're so focused and diligent and all these things. So sometimes when that gets lifted, there is that feeling of like, well, now that impulse control has been so pushed to its limit that the exhaustion sets in. So it's great that you saw it as an opportunity to practice. I can wait another day. I can prove this to myself another day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always tell my clients like keeping promises to yourself is the greatest form of self-love.
That's beautiful. That's a great sentiment. I could not agree more. It's like, okay, so sidebar before I go back to like the points you made. Um, the body love and body positivity movement, sometimes it bothers me because I don't think that self-love is equated to self-destruction, right? And we generally see it go the self-destruction route where it's like accept everything as you are and you're fine as you are. If that was true, we wouldn't face some of the concerns and the struggles we face. I think there's a difference between accepting yourself and then making changes to grow versus loving yourself and doing nothing to change. So I'm curious like how you support those women in that self-love journey to see that they're worth making those changes.
Um, First of all, agree. I hate the body positivity movement
Uh-huh.
because I mean, you're not meant to have health problems. Like self-love
Right.
just like loving that you are gonna have health problems someday. Um, so it's really just I have we have to like work not I have to convince them, like I have to work with them together to like help them realize that this is only like taking care of your health and your nutrition and your body is only going to make it's going to make every single aspect of your life better. Whether that is, I mean, first of all, your mental health. Because so I know so many people, including myself, have struggled with depression, anxiety. I feel nutrition helps with every area of your life, like brain chemicals and everything. So it can be fixed through that. Being able to show up in your relationships and having energy, and being able to be more productive at work. Like there's so many benefits to taking care of yourself. And you're either going to be focusing on your illness or your wellness.
Mm.
Like if you're not doing anything to take care of yourself, you're subconsciously focusing on the illness that you're probably going to have someday or the health issues that you're going to have.
Yeah.
So just putting it into perspective that and convincing them that their life is going to be better. And it's not even just chasing like the aesthetic part of it. Because you
Mhm.
need to put that aside because your life is a lot more than the body that you live it in.
That's right. Build more than just a body.
Yes.
That's so true. You guys, if you're not watching YouTube, I was pointing at a sign on my wall. But if you want to watch us on YouTube, it's there, /_fit. I always forget to mention that. So that was a little plug. But anyway, yeah, and to then go back to your earlier point too, in your journey for growing, it wasn't just the nutrition. And obviously there was the mental side of things. I'm gonna come back to that one next because I think that'll open up a different conversation. But let's talk about the training because this is a really great point you made that a lot of us don't push our limits or our threshold the way that we need to really train hard. And you said that you started doing a program where you were doing high weight, low rep. And I think people underestimate the power of this because one of the things that I realized was if you do some like powerlifting movements or you do some sort of split that encourages like a 5x5 or anything that's a lower rep, you're pushing weight really heavy. That's going to make your other accessory movements stronger. Like it wasn't, if I don't do military press, let's say for a while, I notice other shoulder accessory movements get weaker.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that's what your experience was, but I think that's something I realized is like doing the high weight, the low rep actually makes the accessories better.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And obviously there's needing when you are training so hard like that, like taking care of yourself, getting body work done, stretching becomes even more important than it already is. Don't forget to stretch, everybody. This is just something I have to say because I suck at stretching. Um,
I'm like, yeah, don't forget.
But it's like, oh, I'm 30 and my body hurts, like we need to
Uh,
take better care of ourselves in the recovery sense as well. But yeah, I definitely like noticed that it helps with the accessory movements. And then it was very important for me to make sure that my form, like I worked a lot on my form. My body doesn't like to squat very much. So I worked like my way up and way on that. And it's like kind of for like squats and deadlifts, like they're really compound, like they're hard movements to learn to do them the right way and to put a bunch of weight on. So you have to take the time to get good at them. And it's just, deadlift is gonna help every area of your body. Only if you're doing it right. If you're doing it wrong,
right.
back out. But so that's why it's important to make sure that you're doing like you need to do the research on and like spend time getting good at the hard lifts. I'm a big proponent for that.
Yeah, I love that. And as far as pushing yourself as hard as you can in the gym, what do you think makes a difference? Like, how can someone know if they're kind of going through the motions or if they're actually pushing their limit? And how can someone identify that?
I that is it's really hard to like pinpoint, but I just feel like like if you're not
Mhm.
doing enough, if you're not pushing yourself hard, like don't phone it in, you know.
Yeah. And also, like, something, because I've done that before. I went through a period of time where I thought, oh, you just go and if your program says 4 sets of 12 reps,
You're
just,
just doing that. And
yeah,
it's like,
you pick a weight that you can do, for 12 reps. It's like,
yeah.
oh, it wasn't until I started realizing that progressive overload and there's different ways to do that. And the way you
Mhm.
push yourself matters. And I'm honestly, not every day can I push that threshold. But when I do, it's like, and you can feel it and you do really know. And I think you said earlier, you write down the weights you're using. That makes such a big difference because then you have physical proof and evidence. Like I did, let's say 12.5 pound lateral raises last week for X amount of reps. Well, this week, if I start doing it and something feels like maybe weaker, well, maybe I'll slow the tempo down, or maybe I'll go for less reps, but you have the actual number to see that
Yeah.
you hit that and you can push it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you said about like, okay, my program says 4 by 12. If you're not doing that, then if you're not writing them down, then I like in the past, I would probably pick different weights every week. So like, what am I even freaking doing with not tracking my weights? Like it just becomes pointless. You have like the progressive overload is everything. And make sure that you actually keep track of it is also the most important part.
Yeah.
And then even with the progressive overload, like maybe you did 4 sets of 12.5 pound lateral raises, but the next week you do 10 sets of, or sorry, like 10 reps at 15 pounds. Like that's progressive overload. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat, as they say.
Yeah. Poor Richard. He's
I
like,
know. He's locked out of here right now because it's always a toss up whether he's going to behave or if he's going to be like fucking around back there.
he's in the back, like, this is my pro card.
Pretty much.
So let's go back to 2020 when you started competing, because I know I don't know, but I think that was kind of when things were being revealed to you about maybe your marriage, and then in 2022 was when the divorce
Yeah.
was really happening. So can you just take us through that side of your journey?
Yeah, 2020 was difficult. I was full blown married then, and we were like 2 years into our marriage, and things were just not going well. Um, and then I was just in a not great place mentally, and I just needed something. Well, first of all, we'll take it way back to 2012, when I started like not going to the gym, when I started working out, and
Uh-huh.
that was just me like following Beachbody programs and
Yeah.
like probably eating like 1,200 calories a day and wondering why I never looked any different. So literally up until 2020, that's what I was doing for like 7 or 8 years, trying to like I loved it. I loved the idea of, looking good. And I always had abs, but not like it was like not no other muscle definition. So I wasn't happy with how I looked and I never looked any different. And then I met a friend. She had done a competition. I was like, well, that's cool. Like that was my introduction to it. I didn't know anything about it, never done any research. And then I was just like, I need something. Like, I'm gonna do this. So I wasn't on Instagram. Like, my marriage was so bad, I had deleted my Instagram account at the time. Like, I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want anybody to see because we had been separated for a little while that year, and that's when I was off of it. So I like found my first coach on YouTube, and we did my prep together, and I just like jumped right in. I had taught myself how to, I thought about it for, it was 2019 when I met this chick. So I had thought about it over the winter. I taught myself how to track macros. I was going to go get a gym membership, but then I didn't. So when I hired her, I didn't know how to track macros. Um, then just like doing my prep and focusing on myself, I realized that it wasn't I wanted to do it because I wanted to look a certain way. Um, and then just with competing, like I got hooked when I got first. There was 4 bikini girls in that first show that did, by the way, like
Okay.
total. It was the smallest show ever, but hey, I still
Everyone gets nationally, I think that year, top five was nationally qualified
yep,
anyway.
yep, everyone was nationally qualified. Um, but yeah, as far as like the marriage side of things, I just realized like it wasn't about me. Like I felt like I couldn't have anything that I did that I liked, that took the attention away from whatever he was doing. Um, so then, after my first show, I stopped working with my first coach, 20, and then in February, that's when Kiki and I started working together. We did another show. we did, well, the 2021 National Fit Show. Even then, like, I almost didn't have my ex come. And then it was another like shit show, like show day. It got turned into like we got in a fight. That's like not what I need in my life.
No.
And then it just got, it was to the point, we tried for 2 years, going through some really like heavy stuff. But in May, I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like, obviously there's more to the story that I'm not ready to share with the world yet. But it was just like I said to Kiki, hey, because I knew that I wanted to be in the fitness space by that time. Like I had fallen in love with it, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I said to Kiki in my check-in that week, I was like, hey, I'm getting separated from my husband. Do you have any suggestions of what I can do in the fitness industry? And she was like, I kind of need an assistant, so you can come live in my guest house. And I was like, sold. Literally 2 days later, I was like, gone. I moved to Ohio, packed up my car full of shit, and then drove 13 hours to Ohio to live in her guest house and never saw my ex again.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was wild. But it was like the best decision that if I hadn't taken that opportunity, like I don't even want to think about what my life would look like because I would have stayed. I would have like I tell her all the time, she maybe saved my life is dramatic, but like I don't know where like what I would be doing right now because I had, my ex and I worked together. So we had a business together that we ran and I didn't have a job. So her asking me to come out there and like providing me a place to live, and then I got to learn everything from her was just amazing. So shout out Kiki, best
Awesome.
coach award. She
Yeah, I
taught
didn't
me
know.
how to live it.
Yeah, wow.
So
That's amazing. And the
yeah,
fact that she could be there for you. That's like woman supporting woman.
hmm
That's
yeah,
amazing. What
yeah,
a courageous thing to do also, because I think it sounded like you were thinking about it for a long time. You guys have been working really hard to fix things and it wasn't getting better. And
yeah.
I don't need you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing. We don't often talk about divorce on the podcast because most people can't talk about it due to legal reasons, right? You've been open about some of your experiences, ways that you've grown and you've gotten more confidence, and you went from being miserable to now being really, really happy and rebuilding your whole life. So, were there, I'm going to ask this, but you don't have to answer.
You're
Were there things in the beginning of the relationship that came out through that? Or was it like you got married and suddenly it was a different person?
Oh no, it was me. I wanted to get married so bad. Like I never should I should have known. I will share like my self-worth from when I started working out in 2012. I started working out because some effing man told me I could never be with someone that doesn't work out. And I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. I didn't have any like boyfriends. I didn't feel pretty, like I wasn't confident. All my other friends were in relationships and whatnot. And so I started looking to men for validation, I guess.
Mhm.
So my uh relationships in the past have not been amazing. Just like getting attached to people too quickly and like envisioning the best in someone that's not the best. Like we tend to look past things if there's something else we want, which I wanted to get married. All my friends were getting married. I felt left out. I was 24. I shouldn't have gotten married at 24, and I am a big proponent for people waiting until later in
Mhm.
life to get married because divorce is, I mean, it's a huge thing right now. And it's like sad that there's jokes about it. Like, well, I'm 30 and I already got my starter marriage over with. Like,
Mhm.
people like expect marriages to fail, and that's what I am looking for now. And this, like, being alone for a couple of years has really taught me, like, you can be alone and be happy, and you don't need a person in your life or a man or a relationship to validate who you are. That does not define you in the slightest. But yeah, there was definite, like, signs, and we fought a lot in our relation, like, before getting engaged. So you got to pay attention to that stuff. Like, you look past it because you have your eyes on the prize and marriage and wedding and everything, and then the wedding happens and it's amazing, and then things things goes out. And just being married, like, you have to be ready to work on it um with your partner and grow together, which we apparently weren't willing to do.
Wow. So I appreciate you sharing a lot of your personal perspective there, because I think this is so common. And I recently experienced this myself, where I idolized the idea of marriage and kids and all of that, that I overlooked some serious red flags. And I have compassion for myself because I can see what was
Mhm.
happening. And you're right, there's generally a justification for all the good. And like you just focus on that and instead of looking at what's really happening. So now that you've seen that and you look back on it, how would you or how do you encourage others to identify what's really happening instead of what they're wanting to see happen?
Oh gosh. I mean, I don't I try not to give other people marriage advice or, like, relationship advice, because it's so messed up, because this is where I struggle now. If someone tells me something that their significant other is doing, I'll just be like, speaking from my past self immediately, I'm like, just break up with them. Like, it can be the smallest thing. I'm like, dude, if you're complaining about it, just break up, which is not the answer. Like, you
Right.
guys can work it out. But I mean, sometimes I think that advice is warranted. Um, like, just this morning, one of my friends was messaging me about this guy that was texting her. She's like, "Can I send you some screenshots of these? Like, I'm getting weirded out." I was like, just reading these is giving me the ick. Like, I wouldn't even waste your time. Like,
Uh-huh.
but you can be, that's my biggest piece of advice. Be picky. Like, you can be picky, and we, as myself, like, I feel we're so afraid of, like, hurting people's feelings. But what about your own feelings? What about, like, don't give yourself to someone because you're afraid of hurting their feelings. Like, that's dumb.
Great point. Yeah, that's so true. And I think we're more likely to see the best in somebody, want the best, or believe the best, that we will justify the build a man process instead of
You
being like,
can't
oh,
fix them.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm learning the difference between like what's a need, what's a want,
Yeah.
and what's fair to expect, what's not fair. And I think that there's a big throwaway culture for sure right now where it's like, oh, one little thing goes wrong, toss them, like you were saying. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like given past experiences and hurts, I can see why you'd go that way because you could identify that there were things that you should have walked away from and didn't.
Yes. Yeah, that is exactly where it stems from. But I have realized I can't be that. I said to my sister one time, I was like, dude, if a man ever embarrasses me again, I'm out. She's like, Beckon, they're gonna embarrass you sometime. Like, oh, this is perfect.
I know. Then you're like, well, what's the freaking point? Why does anybody do
Ain't nobody gonna embarrass me. So here I am living with my cat.
that? Hey, Richard's great, you know?
The best. I really got lucky with him because I just wanted a cat. I had seen him on the Humane Society website, and I, like, his picture on there. I was like, that's the one. Like, I
Was his
knew it.
name Richard already?
No, it was Alan.
I love the name Alan, but that's such a weird name for a cat.
Well, so is Richard.
Richard is too.
Like people love it. I love telling people his name is Richard, and they're like, "What?" It's
That is
hilarious.
why it's so great. I'm like, when I remember when I first read that, I was like, wait, who the heck is Richard? I'm like, that is so funny.
It's
Good thing.
great. And he's like a good cat. Like he's not boring. He's super friendly. Everybody loves Richard.
That's awesome. Yeah, he sounds like a superstar.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you bring up a lot of great points from the relational side of things. And there's also so much strength that you've obviously gained and confidence that you've gained, where you're no longer seeking that validation. And it's something that you came to the realization, hey, this marriage is no longer work throughable. As much as I didn't want to walk away, I am because we've tried. So then you said in a recent story, it was actually the hardest thing you've ever been through. So, what were some of those emotional and mental experiences that came with the divorce, and how have you as a person grown through that?
Well, actually, I recently took an Enneagram personality test, and I'm an Enneagram 1, and it made total sense. I'm a perfectionist, and my weaknesses, one of them was that I don't like to feel pain. So, which I mean, no one does, but it's like elevated for me. Like I'll avoid things. Um, and that was hard going through the divorce because you just want to mask it, or at least I wanted to. And then waking up in the morning, I got really bad. I had like really bad like morning anxiety. Like I would cry a lot in the morning, cortisol spike in the morning, all of that fun stuff. Um, so that was really hard to not like run back to him,
Mhm.
and just like go back home, go back to what was familiar. Because not only did I leave him, but like moved away from my family as well. And I'm very close with my family. So, I mean, obviously I had Kiki, but not anything familiar there. So that was incredibly hard. Um, and just thinking about like, what do I do? Like, is this going to work? Am I going to be okay? Um, Newsflash, I was okay. But it was just like so unfamiliar and so uncomfortable. And it's scary, leaving something that you've known for so long. And it's really sad. Like, I'm not like happy that, like, I'm not proud to say, oh, I got divorced. I think it's powerful to talk about, and I think people should talk about it more because there's so many people that are going through it as well. I mean, I have a lot of friends that have gotten divorced. So it's good to have other people's insight. If from someone that you trust, like, don't just like believe everything you hear. And because I'm not a big proponent for divorce. Like, I don't want to get divorced again, and it's scary because like, well, if you get divorced once, your chances of getting divorced again are like significantly higher. So it's just going to be like finding my person and someone that I want to like work through life with, that I know is going to work and like have a family with and everything. So um, but yeah, it was not a fun time. I think just being away from home definitely elevated the pain.
Oh, I imagine so. You don't have like your main support system, and then
And not having like the that's kind of what I miss sometimes, is like having someone to go out to eat with all the time, or like to do things
the
with,
partnership.
or like just cuddle on the couch with. Like that is like nice, but also it's a very peaceful life that I have
Yeah.
living.
Yeah, I imagine so because you want those things with someone who adds to your life, and they don't always have to be. It's not like they have to give, 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 and you just want to take. It's just
Mhm.
there should be a partnership that is filling in some way.
Mhm. So just like ditching old habits was a hard part there as well.
Sounds like it. That comfortable feeling
Yeah.
in what you know, and then this the discomfort, especially if you are maybe more of a perfectionist or averse to pain,
Yes.
you'll see like, well, the what ifs get really, really big. What if I don't figure this out? Then I'm in financial pain. What if I don't get sustain this job? Then I'm don't have a place to live. What if I never find somebody and I don't have a family? What if I could just go back and it'll be so comfortable and predictable? But
Right.
it's painful. That would be painful.
And that's really with anything in life. I'm gonna butcher this freaking statement. I should have it memorized, but just with anything like with starting a fitness journey or a new job, like um people won't change until their current level of pain exceeds the pain that it's going to take to change. Um, So yeah, it was like this is going to be hard, but my current state right now is a lot harder than it's going than what's coming, basically. I might have butchered that part,
No, so I think he said it very well, and the proper way to say it. It made perfect sense. So I think, yeah, and I think that's a great way of looking at it too. Which sometimes I think when we are resistant to change, it's important to identify the painful factors of our current life that make us even contemplate if change is worthwhile. And then what we think has to change in order to make a better life. Because sometimes what we think we have to do is actually not what we need to do. We just kind of build it up in our head like it's going to be this big thing.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I overthink things.
Yeah, me
And
too.
really, things are not as hard as I'm like making them up in my head. To be
Same. So I think you're right. There's power in talking about it for people who are going through it, have been through it. I also hear you saying, you value marriage. You aren't necessarily proud that you got a divorce. You were miserable, but now you're more free and you took some really big steps. Do you feel like competing was something that gave you a lot of confidence and strength that you needed for your life and to keep saying, no, I'm rebuilding for this new life?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, just on the outside, it gave me what I had been looking for years. I wanted to look like a bodybuilder. I wanted muscle, I wanted abs, all that. So it real like first it gave me the knowledge that I can do that. That made me confident. And then it's like an ego boost, of course, when other people are like, wow, you look so good. Not that that means anything at all, but it definitely just proves prep is hard. You just like prove to yourself over and over again that you can do hard things, and that like compound effect is building confidence in yourself. And there was just so much to learn along the way um, about not only like the nutrition and fitness side of things, but just it didn't. I don't know if it gave me a new. I wouldn't say a new perspective on the world, but like, yeah, I mean, I would say getting on stage half naked in front of a bunch of people is gonna make anyone more confident. Like, yeah, you freaking did that.
Yeah, what's funny is like I never think everyone says that, like you're getting on stage half naked. And every time I've gotten on stage, I like never saw it that way. But now as I get older, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like literally that's what is happening here. And
Yeah,
kudos to us.
I know. I don't feel naked on stage.
Yeah,
Um, at um at junior nationals, they were like checking all of our suits in the
really.
front so that they weren't like gapping opens so that people didn't have like because there was like a pretty bad slip, I guess.
There's been some slips lately.
That's so scary. Or like, what if your connector broke and then all of a sudden you like have your diaper full? It's a it's scary to
Oh,
think.
what's part about that too is if you didn't do a DIY tan, you're just gonna have like a lighter tan right there.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, second spray didn't hit that area. Uh, Man, I cannot even. Well, my connector broke the night before 2020 USA's, and I sewed my suit back together. And I remember thinking, this could be the day, this. And I had a client, and actually one of the podcast anniversary episodes I did, I had people like send voice memos or call in with like crazy stories.
Uh-huh.
And told her story, which was like her top fell off on stage. I think I would and luckily it was, I think, as she was walking off and it was like the back, but I think I don't know what I would do, honestly.
I don't know. I have thought about that before, like that or like your heel breaking or something. Like,
Oh,
what do you do? I'm not prepared for these moments.
no, I admire the people. Like, have you seen these videos of the people who do have the stage fails and they do great? Like this one girl whose shoe, I think it snapped or it came off, and she like so gracefully picked it up and finished it. And I was like, wow,
Mm-mm.
better than
I
me.
mean, when I bend, if I bend down on like there's like when I like squatted down to get my pro card, I'm just like full blown like frog squat. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it like gracefully.
Bend and
Sorry.
snap. None of that. Yeah, I know. I think about that too. Sometimes, like the way they place the trophies, even just a medal around your neck, and you're like, hold on, my hair.
I
Just,
know it's so bad. It's like, okay, that junior nats, they were like, okay, I'm gonna let you get your hair out of the way. I'm like, thank you,
oh,
thank
that's
you.
so nice. Yeah, because otherwise, when they just place it on, you're like, okay, first of all, that's heavier than I expected. Second of all, now my hair, I don't even know what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even remember. Oh, the confidence thing. Yeah, because you never know what could happen. So you're like, well,
Right.
yeah, that's so true too. Like we really don't know. There's something about that adrenaline or that just facing the potential fears that could come up and knowing that you did it. But I think in the fitness journey you faced, you developed passion as well. It's very clear that that's something you want to give others. So how has starting your coaching business actually been influential in your rebuilding of your life? And what even inspired you to do that aside from, of course, the situation you were in that led you to mentorship with Kiki?
Yeah. So I just I actually got in my head about this a lot when I was thinking about like getting my first step was my personal training certificate. Um I've seen so many people in the industry. Like, I did one show and now I'm a personal trainer. And I didn't want to be that person. Like, just because you did a show doesn't mean you know everything.
Mhm.
But I definitely started like building that passion for it and knew that I wanted to do something in the industry. Like, whether I had an idea of like maybe I'm gonna own like a boutique like studio. Like, I'm into not that I
Oh,
do it, but like I think it'd be cool to have like an aerial yoga studio or like a pole dancing studio. Like that was my first idea of like how can I make this my
mm.
job? And then um it was over the last winter that I was together with my ex, I was like thinking about it, and then it happened, and I moved out to Kiki, and she was like, "Okay, if you're gonna be working for me, like you have to get your personal training certificate." So like it was like baptism by fire. Like she was like, "Get this done," and I was like lollygagging about it. She's like, "Are you done with that yet?" I was like, "No." I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I'm on it." And then I got my nutrition coaching certificate through that. Um, and then so I was like working as her assistant, so she was paying me, and then the whole team that shall not be named thing happened, and she was on her own. And then it was like, okay, we're both doing this on our own now. So that's when I had to hustle and like start my own coaching business. And it started off real like it wasn't going well. I didn't know, it's a lot of it is trial by error. Just figuring out what works best, what the best way to coach people is. And then I um invested in the Nutrition Coaching Institute. So
Mhm.
they do like applied nutrition coaching. Like, yeah, you know all of the nutrition stuff, but like how do you actually coach people, human beings? So I went through a course on that, and then they have a business course as well, like frameworks to run how to build your like online nutrition coaching business specifically to that. So that changed my entire game of my business, and it's been great. I finished my like business course at the beginning of this year and like have doubled my like from where I was at when I started. So that's been really cool. I just like through that it was like there's more than like there's different ways to do things. And just learning what works best for people. And I am like constantly adapting. So the perfectionist in me sometimes doesn't like that, but
Right.
I am just passionate about how I can serve people the best way possible for them and for myself as a business owner. Um, because I do always want to be passionate about it. So that means taking care of myself as well and not getting burnt out.
How do you do that?
How do I not get burnt out? Um, I am very like the one thing about me is I will not overwork myself. I take days off. Like I don't care. I'm taking care of myself. I'm gonna nap if I want to nap. I get to set my own schedule. So that helps. I also don't get burnt out because I don't have a man in my life that's annoying me. I don't have kids.
There's all these other external stressors making
Yeah,
it
yeah,
difficult.
I just do what I need to do, and, but I am also, like, a procrastinator, so that's where I get in trouble is, like, if I have a deadline for something that I need to do, it will be the day before, and then I get like, that's the one way that I could improve, um, but otherwise, like, I have such a system going for myself that it's to the point where if someone comes along and interrupts that system, it's gonna be like, okay, what are you doing?"
Yeah. You're like, I will feel that impact and I'll have to evaluate it.
Yes, exactly.
That's good. I really like that perspective on it too. Like to take the time for yourself, make time for yourself as a business owner. When you have the ability and flexibility to do that, it's important too.
Well, that's also a big, driver for me is because, well, when I was married, like, when we were working together, I did whatever. Like, I set my own
Mhm.
schedule, and I wasn't about to go work for someone else.
Right.
Like, I can't work. I don't like I have problems with authority.
Authority.
Look, I'm gonna set my own schedule. I just was so used to being able to do
Mhm.
whatever I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So I knew that I had to work for me. And in order to make that work, like you have to freaking hustle. Like
Yep.
it doesn't just come like
Exactly.
much with anything, you have to like no one's coming to save you. So you have to like work your ass off sometimes to be able to take care of yourself.
That's right. So, what kind of women do you normally work with?
I mean, so many people have like a very niched coaching business, but I'm just like, I work with everybody, young adult, like young women to postmenopausal women, um, anyone that I vibe with and that is like willing to put in the work. Um, I work with people that are trying to build muscle, people that are trying to lose weight, people that are just trying to maintain where they're at and like just become a healthier version of themselves, like inwardly, like as far as nutrition related. But yeah, I just love helping anyone. So
That's awesome.
I don't work with men though.
Do you not like to, or was it just like not on your mission?
It's I feel like I have such a bad um like
View on
I
them?
don't want to get hit on.
Yeah.
Like I don't want you talking to me for the wrong reasons and like
Yeah.
get away.
Love it when you'll do your tits up Tuesday videos and like you'll be talking to a man and I just sometimes like the energy is so funny. I just love it.
Dude, you have to be a savage to them.
Yeah, you are a savage. That's why I'm like, holy crap, girl.
I'm very blunt.
Yeah.
Well, like I think a lot of people avoid me like when they see me because I have such a bad resting bitch face. I've been told that I like look intimidating. Like I am the dumbest person, like the dorkiest person that you will ever meet or talk to. Like, yes, I look like angry all the time, but not the case in the slightest.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I thought that that was such a clever thing that you did, and you make great content as well.
Thank
Imagine
you.
that's
I'm like in a funk about it right now. I think I have the post show blues a little bit. Like,
yeah,
obviously, I'm glad I'm not competing. I'm very ready to be in an improvement season, but like I competed and then I moved the week after, and I'm just like, well, you're like, how do you not get burnt out? I think I'm a little burnt out right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But and then it was just like, well, now I posted all my show content and I don't want to switch back to like
Totally.
educational content. And it's just like I'm trying to find some sort of like, I don't know, a spark.
I get that. I think it's natural and normal, like even from like a chemical perspective, like you reach this peak and this high, and then it's
Yeah.
down. And
And you don't really think about how much stress you're putting your body through
exactly.
as well. Um, So I'm working on just like toning it down a little bit, making sure I get my steps in. I'm not like going super hard in the gym right now.
Yeah.
I am getting stretched by a person tomorrow, which I'm excited about.
In my Laffy Taffy mode.
I literally sent that to Kiki. I
Did
was
you?
like, just put me in a in a taffy stretcher. That's what I need. Or like one of those like torture devices.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, that would be great. Like literally just sometimes to have someone like press a pressure point on your body is like, yeah, do
I
that.
know. Yeah, yeah. And my new gym has a sauna in it, so I've been using that every day, which has been great.
That's good.
Yeah. So recovery is the key right now. Obviously, still reversing. I feel like my calories are pretty high at the end of my prep. So it's like weird because I feel like I'm reversed. Like I feel like
Yeah,
I look normal again. Like not like diced, which
right.
sucks to see go, but it's not sustainable. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, just getting back into life mode and building my business mode and everything, which is good.
Yeah, that is really good. I know that it can be tough though. Sometimes like I'll hit those walls with content where I'm like, okay. And honestly, doing these podcasts, like talking with people, it helps me because I'm like, oh, we talked about this subject and now I'm thinking about these things that I want to make posts
Yeah.
about.
I always like write my ideas down, but then it's just a matter of like like putting it onto the screen.
I know. I've been beating myself up a little bit. Like, I used to make videos all the time, reels
Yeah.
and regular videos, and now I just been write, and I love to write, and I always have like vlogs every single day. But sometimes I like judge my. I think sometimes we judge ourselves. I know I do. Like you judge your current output based on previous outputs, but that doesn't mean that that output was sustainable or even necessary right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's just, well, I did this with competing and I'm doing it with this now. Like, okay, you just have to accept that it's okay that you're not putting out content
Yeah.
right now. And then same with competing. I was like, okay, you're literally like, it's expensive, right? You're gonna have to spend like this amount of money and be okay with it this year. Like,
Mhm.
just you have to sometimes convince yourself that things are okay. It is
Yeah.
okay spending a little bit of extra money on competing or that you're not putting as much content out, like things are still going to be okay.
I like that. I actually needed to hear that. Like, just because things look different doesn't mean you're not okay.
Right.
That's a good word. I
Very
like,
true.
yeah. So I want to go back to what you're doing because obviously you're reversing. It's awesome. You said one of your goals, at least I saw it in your planner from your story, is to earn top five in the pro league. So what are you guys doing? I know earlier you said more glutes, more arms, and so what are you doing actually to make that happen? And what's the goal to eventually get back on stage?
Yeah. So as far as what we're doing food wise, just building my calories are at like 2,500 right now. During the last few weeks of my prep, they were at on my low days, like 2,200 or 2,400. On all my glute days, I was doing high days.
Nice.
And then, post show, which was amazing. That whole week, Kiki was just like, just intuitively eat this week. And it was nice that I could actually trust myself to do that and didn't feel like, okay, I need all of the food. And I just like, you get in your head a little bit, like, I don't want to gain 10 pounds overnight. A, that feels like crap. B, I don't want, like, you can see the inflammation on your body from that.
Yeah.
It's not that you're gaining 10 pounds of fat, but just being really smart about it and like actually acting like a pro competitor, which was what was different this whole season. Like, there wasn't a time I was like craving a bunch of stuff. So right now, after that week, we up my calories a little bit, and that'll continue to happen. So we'll get them built up as high as we can. I'm excited to see how high they get coming out of prep with them already being like incredibly high. And my training hasn't changed, so I'm still doing the same training. Like, I that was one thing I was getting burnt out of during prep. Like, I hated my gym, so I was just like not feeling the training situation, but I still went and did it every day or 6 days a week. So training, I've been like just kind of going to the gym, doing what feels fun to me. I haven't had a lot of time. So just doing some different things, doing a little bit shorter workouts while my body is also like recovering.
Yeah.
But otherwise, nothing. We always talk about this on our podcast. Like, being in season and on season is just like turning dials up and down. Like, cardio dial turned down now. Being absolutely freaking perfect about a meal plan turned down. Like, I'm usually like, I'm such a creature of habit, so I'm fine with eating the same thing all the time. I like having structure and a meal plan. So like, she'll give me my macros, and then I usually take and make a meal plan out of it. And just eat the same thing all the time. But I have that freedom to track macros on days that I want to add something else in. So I've been trying some different, like, not different foods, but just like foods that I miss, like bread. So just like getting back into normal,
Right.
just non-prep mode, uh, which isn't that much different because I know what it feels. I felt so good this prep too. Like, there wasn't any days that was like, oh, I feel like I'm dying. Um, but just like, I know how good I feel when I do take care of myself and I'm not eating garbage all the time or like drinking too much champagne. Of course, there's room for champagne now in the improvement season.
I love it. I like that the dials. Like, you're turning
Yeah,
some up, you're turning some down, because I I usually use a pendulum as like a visual. Like, we don't want the swings from prep to improvement season to look like this. They really
yeah.
can just look like little, because otherwise you do fall into even more all or nothing instead of like, okay, my if my improvement season doesn't look that different from my prep and my prep doesn't look that different from my improvement season, it's gonna be a lot more likely that I'll have longevity in this sport.
Yeah. Yeah. 1000%. And you can always, like, the serious competitors know that and understand that, like, don't swing so far in the opposite direction. I'm not saying that, like, I don't agree with being 2 pounds within stage weight all year
Yeah,
long
no, definitely not.
whatsoever. That's just so hard on a person's body.
Especially if you're not even where you need to be from a muscular or a
Right.
caloric or health
Yeah.
standpoint. I think that's a dangerous message actually for competitors.
I agree. And that is one thing that's hard as a competitor for sure, is in my off season last, or like 2 years ago or whatever year it is.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of my off season, I was thick. Like, I was like thick for me. I was like 145 pounds, and my stage weight this year was 125. But I felt, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said I was thick. I felt so good. Like
Right.
I felt like I looked so good. And then you see yourself like diced. And then it's like,
I know.
that's why I'm saying it was thick, because it's like compared to now, it's like, yeah, you were thick. Of course you were, you're
Yeah.
supposed to be. Like, so like now we're changing that. Like I don't need to bulk as hard as I did last time. But like just remembering, hey, you felt okay. You were okay in your improvement season, like not being diced. So it's okay.
Yes, that's so true. You have to remind yourself, like, at least I've been 160 pounds after some seriously traumatic experiences I faced, and I was still on point with my diet. I was still on point with my training, and I was like, I cannot stop gaining weight. And I was still happy with my body because I knew I was doing what I needed to do.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, your mindset is everything, but it is hard to get into that, or like hard to get into that mindset sometimes, especially coming right out of a show. Um, but yeah.
And that's why I think it's actually worth celebrating, like when you are in an improvement season and you're feeling strong or you're liking the way that your curves look, like really
Yes.
or celebrate it. So then when you're post show, you're like, I liked that.
Yeah, I was gonna do a photo shoot in December. Like, but then I had to go back to Minnesota abruptly. So I had to cancel it. But I was like, I'm getting these pictures done of me like
Yes.
in a bra and underwear in the thick of my improvement season. Like
Yes.
I was bummed that it didn't happen. But yeah, you have to celebrate it. It's like, yo, that built me the body of a pro.
Exactly.
Can't be
What
mad about that.
clapping for? You should have seen her 6 months ago. She was awesome. She was freaking
Yeah.
worse in the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, true that. I think that's so important for like the reason I think it can be dangerous, by the way, to promote the stay very close to stage weight thing is not just yes, the calories and yes, the muscle maturity and mass that needs to be built, but also I think it creates a fixation on a number, on a weight instead of on process. And if research shows being process oriented will lead to better outcomes and also more sustainable effort over time. So when you only focus on your weight and your stage weight and how close am I to the weight, you're so outcome oriented, you're stealing the joy of the process and of the building, and you're more likely to engage in disordered eating behaviors because you're dissatisfied with your body image.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. There's, am not, I don't obsess over the scale. And like, I don't care enough about it to not eat. Um,
Right.
like I
Yeah.
will never, I'm not going to starve myself.
Yeah.
But you can, like, there's some days that I just know, like, hey, I'm not going to weigh myself today. I don't want to see it. Like, it doesn't matter in the
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter today. But I do like to, like for data purposes, like, like what happened after this, or like what happened, you know, before this state. I think it's fun to see, but it's very fine line of being obsessed with it.
Absolutely. Like I track my weight every single day for data, but if I go on a vacation and there's no weight scale, I'm not like, "Ah, it's the data." I'm just like,
Right.
I'm good. I
I'd
trust
rather
my
not
body.
know, yeah. Don't need that information today.
No, and then sometimes like you go over to someone else's house or you're staying over, like your my dad, for example, if I stay at his house, his scale's always like I'm 2 pounds heavier at his house every time. So now I'm just like, I'm not weighing myself at my dad's because it's not even
Right.
accurate data and it's not necessary. Now, if I
Mhm.
was in prep, I would bring my own scale probably, but if it's not prep, so why would I do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, in prep, yep, I carry a scale around with me. We have this like travel one from Amazon that's really nice, but every time I step on it, I'm like, it's gonna break because it's so small. But, but it's definitely nice to have. Because like on show day, like we want to know my weight. Just to like, okay, where are we at? Like on uh St. Louis, I believe my stage weight was, or like that peak week, it was like
Yeah.
120 pounds. And then junior nats, we had to fill me out. I was 125 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool, like from a data perspective, like we need to fill me out that much more.
Where were you at Junior USA's, by the way? Like, what was your weight?
I think it was 124.
Okay, because you for like your glutes when you won your pro card looked fuller. You had some striations at Junior USA's, it looked like.
Yeah, they said that my glutes looked like that was what we needed to fill out more, like a little more full. Um, so we did
You
it.
did it. Yeah, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
So you had said
Yeah.
earlier too, like don't underestimate how much can change between shows. Do you often find like people maybe sell themselves short like on certain feedback that could be adjusted?
Um, yes. Yeah, or like maybe they don't know or their coach doesn't know what to do to actually implement that. So that's been really cool to see with how far Kiki has come as a coach and just learning so much and like how we were able to actually implement these things and not have to do weird things to like fill me out. Like seeing what some people are doing is like, why didn't you start that like 5 days ago? Like if you're
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think it can they can either sell themselves short and don't come back improved, or they do something really strange and then they don't even like I've seen it so many times people like get first call outs at one show or like top five and then they go to the next one and don't get top five. And it's all about who shows up, but it's just like, well, what did you do? Because I said that to Ben because I almost didn't do junior nats.
Yeah.
I was ready to be done after junior
Oh,
USA. Good thing we did junior nats.
thank goodness. We
Stuck
wouldn't
it
be here right now.
stuck it out for 4 more weeks.
Yeah.
But I said to Ben, I was like, dude, I've seen people go get like top five at Junior USA's and then go on to the next show and get third call outs. He's like, that's because they came back worse. I was like, well, what if that happens to me? He's like, it's not going to happen to you. You're doing this freaking show.
Love that.
So like having Kiki and Ben in my corner and like just trust in the process. Like it was all in their hands. Like I didn't have to think about anything. Kiki knew exactly what she was doing with me. And then we worked together for so long. Like she knows how my body responds. So yes, people can sell themselves short with the improvements that they could be making between shows. Whose fault that is, not sure if it's theirs or their coaches, but there's definitely like room. I mean, depending on what it is. Like
Right.
I just needed to fill my glutes up a little bit more. It's not like I needed 3 more pounds of muscle on them.
Yeah, that's a big difference because
Yeah.
it's like there are certain things where judges will say you need to grow, and then they keep doing three more shows that year, and the judge is like, you need to grow, you need to
Mhm.
grow. So if there is, yeah, it's like that's not gonna happen.
Or even like the arm thing.
Yeah.
So obviously I was training biceps a little bit more between St. Louis and Junior Nats, but even on the day of junior nats, like I didn't pump up very much my arms very much before prejudging. And you can see in the picture, like before my pro debut, you can see how much of a difference like pumping up made.
Wow,
It's like it's been so cool for me to like have the eye for those things now too.
that is awesome. I'm gonna have to look at your shots from when you won your pro card to when you stepped on the pro stage and compare.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was cool. And I didn't eat any, like I barely ate that day because I was already full. Like I was full and I was holding it. So it's like,
Oh,
which usually was a problem in the past. Like
yeah.
her body can't keep up. Like she's burning through food. So it's like good to how we loaded me into that show.
Yeah, that is
Although
good.
it sucked that day not eating anything.
That is one of those
So
things.
long. It was, I mean, like prejudging finals and then the pro show.
Oh,
Like that
that's such a
was a lot.
long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I bet. And now, obviously, like that was your pro debut. Did you change your posing for that?
Oh, nope. I was not about to mess with that. Like my routine was fine. All the other girls did. And I was like, dude, I'm not just gonna go out there. Like I didn't even practice. Like it wasn't even a thought for me, Kiki, or Ben. Like
Yeah.
they're like, your routine is great. Just go do it. So I just did it. And I was the only one that didn't change anything. But
Yeah.
it was like I would rather just do my normal routine that I know looks good and versus like do something that I'm not used to doing.
Totally. Well, and
Because
it's
I
like,
was, it was already overwhelming enough. Like when
yeah,
Sam called my number, I was like just standing on the sidelines. Like I had no idea what my number was at that point because
yeah.
he switched.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when she called 23 and then she was like, back in, it's like, oh, I got called.
That's so epic. So Ben obviously stepped in at some point in your journey. And I know you had mentioned in a post like he was very hands-on with your posing. What did you change to present your physique even better?
Well, so yeah, he became Kiki's coach back in last fall.
Okay.
So then he just like everyone that associates with us gets both of us, right?
Right.
So he then became my posing coach, um, and then just like a second eye as well. So as far as what we changed with posing, he was like my first posing session with him hurt so bad because I was not conditioned at all.
Uh-huh.
Because it was end of my off season. I wasn't paying a super ton of attention to posing, which you should pose all year long. But yeah, I was sore for a week. I swear, like my calves, my lower back, but it was just like the slightest differences. And he's very I don't want to say hard on you, but like get it right. Like
Mhm.
the only thing that stressed me out was making sure that my pictures, my check-in pictures looked good. Like my poses looked good so that I didn't get any critiques or get told to do
Yeah.
it again. Um, so it was like just um just like having him, it was such a good reminder every time that we pose, like, go slow. Okay, no, like you have to change this. Like just like the smallest changes can make such a huge difference. And then like for my entire prep, I was posing on both sides. And then it was like, we're gonna decide which one you're posing on the day of. Um, so I had to like know how to like make sure I was practicing on both sides as well. And at Junior USA's, like 3 minutes before going on stage, he's like, "You're posing on your other side today." I was like, "What?" It was terrifying. But then we ended up switching back. But then for junior nats, I was posing on my right side all year long. And then junior nats, we posed my left side. So
Wow, that almost feels probably risky in the moment.
yeah, yeah, it does. But that's
The
just like
change,
making
like,
sure that it is muscle memory. Like I would be like practicing posing on show day. He's like, "Hey, stop. Like you're gonna freak yourself. You're gonna like don't do it too much. You know what you're doing. Relax.
yeah.
You know exactly what you're doing. Just hit your poses and that's all you need to do." Like, oh, that's all I need to do.
I know that's not overthinking, right?
Yeah.
So why did you guys change sides for that show? Like, what did he see that was different?
The line on my right side was too hard. Like
Mm,
too deep, like from my hip down, like my quad split. So that it was like very, it looked really hard, whereas my left side, not so much.
wow.
Yeah.
So it created more balance, like a little bit
Yeah.
soft. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and they want the fullness, they're not like rewarding anyone for coming in too hard these days. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they didn't need to see that.
That's so awesome that you were able to adapt. So now your plan is to just keep reversing, grow, focus on life and your business.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be next summer. I really want to do the show in Tahoe. Uh,
Oh, that show looks
I
awesome.
think that would be fun. I've always wanted to go there, and now I want to do shows. Like, there is definitely like make sure that you're being smart about what shows you're doing, like who you're getting in front of, all of that to think about. But I really just want to like enjoy it and go to places and like
Totally.
actually explore the places that you get to travel to, because that like every time I go to a show, it's like, okay, you get there, you're there for 2 days, you can't go do anything. And
Right.
then you just want to leave by the time
Yes.
it's done. Like I want to just enjoy it and have experiences and travel. Um, so Tahoe is like my number one that I do.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I'm excited to see your journey, and obviously I like to get your best advice. I know you already shared a lot of good advice. So what would be your best advice for somebody who has never competed before but wants to, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
Oh my gosh. Okay. For someone that's never competed before, I would highly, highly suggest working with a coach for a while before you start your first prep. Kiki and I jumped into my first prep. That one doesn't really count, I feel like, but we worked together for 3 months at least before starting a prep, just so like she can get to know your body, like you know what to do, she or he, sorry. Like just making sure that you have all of the little things dialed in and you're ready to start a prep. And just like do your best to learn about the sport. I remember when I first started researching it, I was like, what even is this? Like it was so hard for me to find any information or like any shows to do. So ask questions, make sure that you trust your coach as well and feel comfortable with them and are able to ask them questions. But I think the biggest thing would be making sure that you work with your coach for a little bit before just jumping into a prep. As far as the road to pro, and this would go for a newbie competitor too, because I remember when after I did my first show, saying to someone, yeah, you just have to get like top two at nationals to get your pro card. It can't be that hard. It's freaking hard, okay? Like, there was so much more obviously, that came from a very naive place. I didn't know anything about the sport then. I'm embarrassed to admit that I said that to someone because I was quickly humbled
Yeah.
because, I remember being at North American looking around like, "These girls are massive, like, these are big girls." And then I remember this year, Kiki was like, "You're a big girl now, Beckin, like, you're here." I'm like, dude, I actually freaking belong here. Like I have glutes just standing up straight. But just please, like, don't rush it. Don't be delusional. I think that's where I was, because that's where I was. Like, it's going to be hard. You're going to have some wins and some losses along the way. And you just, you know, obviously I would have loved to get my pro card at Junior USA's, but I needed that second place to like fuel me to keep going. Like everything is happening for a reason. Be patient with it. Learn as much as you can along the way, both mentally and physically, and um, know that it's going to happen if you keep working out.
Love that. And how can people follow your journey, find you, work with you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is on Instagram. I'm actually rebranding my business right now. So I'm like, website is coming, but we don't know. So you can
Okay.
find me on Instagram at BECKYN_IFBB Pro. I have a Facebook group for women only where I post a lot of like nutrition information and advice on there. Just message me on Instagram if you want in on that. But that's about it. And then you can find our podcast, Champagne Gains, on any of your streaming platforms as well, if you want to hear Kiki and I ramble.
Love that. That's awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes. If you end up getting that website, send it to me. We'll put it in there. And then if you guys are looking for that, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of that page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section and it'll be alphabetized and you can find Beckyn's episode along with not just the links, but notes. I mean, we do full summaries of the episode timestamps, as well as bulleted list of the topics we covered to make it really easy for you guys to listen back or share it with friends, family, and teammates. Let them know why you love the episode. It means so much to me, and it means so much to the athletes when you guys do follow us, tag us, let us know what you thought about the episode. So please feel free to reach out and do that. And we thank you for listening and hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.